gained experience in handling the machine. I found that I could stop for a day, an hour, or even for a second to observe.
And you've used my machine to escape the ends of
I
justice.
must congratulate you on that device. I confess that at dinner the other century, I thought you'd lost your wits. But fate intervened and forced me to ascertain for myself that you are truly the Columbus of a new age.
I've covered!
Trial by stone.
Trial by stone! Holy cat. Hey. It's almost...
Yeah. Almost a perfect...
It is. It's round.
We finally got one.
We found a flying saucer.
He ain't tying me up.
Then I'll have to kill you, child.
Then kill me.
I mean it.
I guess you do.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Mugwump Tower, this is Albatross 1-3, requesting permission to land, over.
I don't need a computer to tell me how to land a damn airplane.
6.
Heads-up display, check.
5,
Lasers, check.
4,
Particle beam, check.
3,
Proton bolts, check.
2,
Chair control, check.
1.
Let's do it.
Broadcasting from a secret underground location somewhere in Mos Eisley, this is the Docking Bay 77 podcast. Make yourself comfortable. The show is about to start. Hello and welcome to the Docking Bay 77 podcast. I am your host, Dayton Johnson. Welcome to our final episode in the series looking at science fiction films across the decades. We've already discussed films from the 50s, Godzilla, and the 80s, The Dark Crystal. But now it's time to revisit both decades again for a look at an original and a remake. Joining me in the Arctic as we uncover what's buried in the ice, I've called in two of the Film By crew. Allow me to introduce the voice and the brains behind the Film By podcast. It is Jeff Johnson, no relation. How's it going, Jeff?
Hey, it's been a while since I've hit the bay. I love what you've done with the place, Dayton.
Thanks. I have to mention really quick, a sidebar. A few weeks ago, Robert actually asked me out of nowhere. He goes, "Are you related to Jeff?" I just never really put the last names together. I said, no, that's the joke. You know, no relation.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Die Hard, like, no relation.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Fantastic. And the nerdiest of all of us, you know, and he's proud of it too. It is David Burns. How's it going, Dave?
It's going great, and I am very proud of that. You are correct. But no, it's good to be back on Docking Bay 77, Dayton. Thank you.
Of course. Yes, we are visiting the 50s again, and we are visiting the 80s again. We are discussing The Thing from Another World from 1951 and John Carpenter's The Thing from 1982. So the first thing we're going to do is start off with an opening thought, just one sentence for each film, how you feel about each film. We'll just do the back-to-back, 1951 and 1982, and then we'll move on from there. So, Dave, you get to go first. Opening sentence, opening thought about each of these films.
I combined mine to one sentence.
Sounds
a
good.
1951 sci-fi classic that is ahead of its time, that is followed up by master of horror John Carpenter in a remake that builds on the concept of the original and makes it gorier.
Nice. Well, that's way better than my two sentences, so I'm not going to skip mine. All right, Jeff, follow that up.
That's a tough act to follow. I, too, combined it, but I'll give you my sentence, Dayton. What we have here is two films separated by 3 decades, adapted from the same novella, which arguably represents the best entries in the science fiction genre of the release years, and I'm very excited to discuss them.
Fantastic. Love it. Okay, so from 1951, it's a solid classic science fiction film that lays the foundation for future sci-fi films. And Carpenter's version, a trip to paranoia, claustrophobia, and next-level practical effects. I am excited because I had never seen the original one before, and of course, I'm a big fan of the Carpenter version, so this is a nice comparison for me. So, looking forward to the discussion very much. Now, let's move on.
That's the fact, Jack! That's the fact, Jack!
It's time for That's the Fact, Jack. These are some film facts about each of our films. We are going to start off with the one that was released first, The Thing from Another World.
That thing's alive, sir. I saw it. I shot it. I hit it. I know it. Nothing happened. It just kept coming at me, making a noise like a cat mewing. Captain, it was awful. You could have seen those hands and those eyes. Captain, you've got to do something about it. You've got...
Is it human or inhuman? Earthly or unearthly? Baffling questions, astounding questions that not even the world's greatest scientific minds can answer.
Gentlemen, do you realize what we've found? A being from another world, as different from us as one pole from the other.
1.9. Needles hit the top.
Released April 27th, 1951 from RKO Pictures. Directed by Christian Nimby in his feature film directorial debut. But he really made his career in directing TV episodes for series like The Twilight Zone, I Spy, The Rockford Files, Gunsmoke, Bonanza, and Wagon Train. Written by Charles Lederer, His Girl Friday, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, Ocean's 11, and Monkey Business, just to name a few of his writing. Based on the 1938 novella Who Goes There by John W. Campbell Jr. And produced by Howard Hawks, who also did some uncredited writing. Starring Kenneth Tobey, Robert Corthwaite, Margaret Sheridan, Douglas Spencer, John Dirks, and James Arnez as The Thing, best known as Marshall Dillon from the TV series Gunsmoke. Runtime of 87 minutes and a box office of almost $2 million, which back then is quite a bit of money. Now, anybody else have any trivia they want to drop on this particular feature film? Jeff, do you want to go first?
Dayton, I've got a fun fact that was so deep in the ice, it took a thermite bomb to dig it out.
I love it.
So listen, while preparing for an encounter with a thing, you'll recall that the journalist character, Scotty, mentions that he attended the 1928 executions of Ruth Snyder and Judd Gray.
Yes.
So I was curious. So when asked, when he asked if he got a picture, he says, no, they didn't allow cameras, but one guy. And then he's interrupted by the Thing's appearance. Well, it turns out he's talking about a real execution, and the guy in question was an unknown photographer named Tom Howard. Sing Sing Prison did not allow photographers to attend executions, and because the prison staff were familiar with local photographers, the New York Daily News hired Tom Howard from Chicago. Tom had strapped a single-use camera to his ankle and wired a trigger up his pant leg. And when they threw the switch, he pointed his toe at the chair and got the first photo of an inmate mid-execution. And the fact that the photo was of a 32-year-old wife and mother convulsing as she died shocked the American public. For the next several decades, anyone attending an execution had to raise their pant legs before entering. And to this day, photographers are not permitted entry. So
that's disturbing, but it's a great story. And I love when writers incorporate real life events into their films and make it, because it adds a little bit of reality into the story, kind of gives us kind of a touchstone into hey, this took place in our world. So that's fantastic. That's a great nugget, man. I heard it and I didn't place it. You know what I mean?
I gotta tell you, and I implore you both to go check this out, and your listeners, just Google Ruth Snyder execution photo. Dayton, it belongs on the cover of a heavy metal album. It is scary looking to see this woman. She's got the mask over her face, and she's like the photo's blurry because the chair's shaking her so much.
All right, what's her last name again?
Ruth Snyder.
Snyder. All right, I'm gonna look that up right now.
Snyder like Zack Snyder.
Right, there you go. That helps. I love it. All right, we'll get back to that. Oh. Yeah. Jeez. Okay. I'm going to save it for later.
Uber creepy.
Yes. Oh, yes. That's awesome. All right. Dave, do you have any fun facts about this film?
Of course. So, of course, we're talking about a sci-fi flick. We're talking about a creature that's in a sci-fi flick. So, they're going to have to spend some money on that outfit.
Right.
And, of course, this movie cost $40,000 in that day, which is equivalent to about $375,000 in around 2015.
Wow.
Which goes kind of hand in hand with what they spent on the Carpenter version, which we'll get to a little bit later. But clearly, you have to spend money. Even though he's not in it a lot, you still got to spend the money.
Right, and Arnaz said he looked like a giant carrot, and he didn't like the outfit. But hey,
which they did incorporate into the script too. If you
yes, they
somebody
did.
mentions that, which is hysterical.
Yes, I love it. I love it. All right, directors Ridley Scott, John Frankenheimer, Toby Hooper, and John Carpenter, of course, all cited this movie as a key influential film in their lives. I love this bit. The U.S. Air Force refused to help on the production because they felt by doing so, they would legitimize the existence of UFOs. So, RKO asked, and they said, no, thank you very much indeed. So, Jeff, you have anything else any other tidbits you want to drop? Because I have a few more.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking, Dave, you mentioned the creature effects. Is it true due to budget constraints, the shape-shifting aspect of the thing could not be accomplished? So
correct.
Because early production sketches, my understanding is that early production sketches showed it more plant-like with spindly arms.
Yep.
And ultimately, it was Howard Hawks who told him just to give it a Frankenstein forehead and keep him out of focus.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and they even cut the close-ups. All the close-ups they shot of the monster, they cut them all out, so you couldn't see, I guess, how bad the head looked, but I think it still works. Yeah, oh yeah, it does.
He knew Carpenter was going to handle it one day. He said, "You know what? John Carpenter's going to do this in '82. We're going to leave it alone and let him do it."
Well, yeah, actually, in the original source material, it was more of a shapeshifter, and that's why they wanted to do it. But I can imagine at that time it was not really feasible, and so they solved their problem, and it worked out pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Dave, you have anything else you want to drop?
Roger Ebert, apparently, when he saw this, said it was the film that scared him to death, especially the scene where they incinerated the thing. And I agree with him. I do. This film, for its time, 1951, was way ahead of its time.
Yeah.
I mean, there is some stuff in this that happens, some subject material that, granted, some of the violence is off screen, but they talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But it's still it's very impressive. And for that time, I guarantee a lot of people were scared to death of this film.
Yeah, the kerosene scene where they burn him is just, that stunt is just crazy stupid. And so,
fantastic.
Yeah, when I watched it the first time, I was like, I can't believe they did that. They're just throwing kerosene across the set. I'm like, oh my God, that's nuts. So
they did what they want then. Do it.
Yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Regulations.
Yeah, it'll be okay. Who cares if the set burns to the ground? That's fine. Yeah. So, James Arness, who played the thing, was so embarrassed by the film and his performance that he did not attend the film's premiere. And of course, we know Carpenter is a big fan because he remade it. The film actually appears in his 1978 classic Halloween. So I thought that was really cool. Yep. Any other tidbits you guys want to drop before we move on to the next film?
The only one I want to mention is what I love about these type of horror films or sci-fi films is the fact that we don't get the creature until an hour and 10 minutes into the film.
Right.
I love it when they do that because it builds the atmosphere, and you can clearly see that's where Carpenter got his inspiration. You can see it in Halloween. You know, that in the atmospheric film that he makes, he does it in The Thing too in 1982. I love that when they do that. And look at Jaws with Spielberg.
Right.
You know, do not show the creature. Just build that atmosphere, and your audience is going to use their imagination and make it that much scarier. I love that.
Yeah, and actually, when we discussed Godzilla from '54, same thing. I mean, yeah, you got a little bit of a look at him in the first 20 minutes, but he didn't fully appear for much later in the film. Mm-hmm. So, it's a good idea to build suspense when it comes to sci-fi and horror. So, Very good. All right, anything else, guys? Nope. All right, let's move on to John Carpenter's The Thing.
Mayday. Can you hear me? This is U.S. Station 31. You read me? Found something in the ice. We need some help down here. Can anybody hear me? We found something. We found something. We found something.
12 men have just discovered something. For 100,000 years, it was buried in the snow and ice. Now it has found a place to live. Inside. Where no one can see it, or hear it, or feel it.
I know I'm human. Some of you are still human. This thing doesn't want to show itself. It wants to hide inside an imitation. It'll fight if it has to, but it's vulnerable out in the open. If it takes us over, then it has no more enemies. Nobody left to kill it. And then it's won.
You guys gonna listen to Gary? He can beat one of those things!
Released June 25th, 1982, of course, directed by John Carpenter. Screenplay adaptation by Bill Lancaster, who is the son of the actor Burt Lancaster, and also wrote The Bad News Bears. Produced by David Foster, who would go on later to produce one of my favorite films, The Mask of Zorro from 1998, and a real clunker, The Core. Anyway, moving on. And produced by Lawrence Thurman, who produced The Graduate, another one of my favorites. And special note here, music by Ennio Morricone, who is very well known for hundreds of amazing scores. And, we get to a fun fact here about that in just a moment. Starring Kurt Russell, by the way, Disney Connection, who was in The Computer That Wore Tennis Shoes and The Strongest Man in the World, who actually signed a 10-year deal with Disney at that point. So, wow. And, of course, worked with Carpenter on Escape from New York and Big Trouble in Little China. Wilford Brimley, sans mustache, T.K. Carter, Richard Mazer, Donald Moffat, Thomas Waits, Keith David, who of course would go on to be in They Live with Carpenter, another Disney connection. He is the voice of Dr. Facilier in The Princess and the Frog, and the voice of Goliath on the Disney animated series Gargoyles. Budget of $15 million, box office of 19.6. So it wasn't a success and it wasn't necessarily a failure, but it didn't really do what they were hoping to do. And we'll get into that in just a moment as well. Runtime of 109 minutes. So
what I love about what John Carpenter, by the way, John Carpenter says of all the movies he's made, this is his personal favorite. And
yes,
I'm with him on that. I really am. As much of a Halloween fan I am, I have to agree with him on The Thing.
Okay.
But what I absolutely love is the opening shot of the titles is very close to the original movie. And I'm so happy that he did that because it just added to this film by doing that.
Yeah. And if you notice, it's also very similar. They did a very similar thing with The Secret of Nim.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, you're right.
Well.
Yeah.
Very good. All right, Jeff, fact for you.
Let's talk about McCready's backstory. Do you guys know this story?
Yes, I heard about this, but share it with the group.
Yes. Yeah, the idea that Carpenter and Russell had worked it out that R.J. McCready was a disgraced Vietnam War helicopter pilot who was involved in a tragic event, and said tragedy results in his suffering of PTSD, alcoholism, and insomnia. Now, that exposition isn't openly shared in the movie, but Kurt Russell shares all of it in his performance, from his body language to his expressions, even some of the subtle dialogue, like, I'm a real light sleeper, Charles. And, and of course he's drinking J&B Scotch whiskey throughout the whole movie. So I love the idea that there's a backstory for some of these guys, especially McCready's.
I love it when actors do that because it helps build their character in the film and they present it that way in front of the camera. And it added such a dimension to his character.
Yeah. The fact that Thomas Waits actually came up with the name for his character for Windows. It was his idea. Yeah. So he's like, came up with the glass on, just call me Windows. They're like, okay, we're going to change the character's name to Windows. That's fine. I love that. I love it. So a quick shout out to our friends over at Vintage Video Podcast. They go year by year, kind of, as they say, rewatching the 80s, so you don't have to. And the opening of every episode has quick sound bites from a lot of the films from that year. Well, they recently did 1982. And the line, "I'm a real light sleeper, Childs," happens to appear in their opening. So you can tell that's pretty iconic for that reason alone. So I love that. So real quick, let's talk about the music. Unused music from this score was used in Tarantino's The Hateful Eight, which is one of my lesser favorite films from him. The score for The Thing got a Razzie for the worst score. But then Morricone went on to win.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
I know. But he went on to win an Oscar for The Hateful Eight.
What?
Go figure, right? The Razzies are stupid. Anyway,
they are.
let's talk quickly about the box office. Released the same day as Blade Runner, that will also met a tepid box office and mixed critical responses. Both got buried by E.T., and then later both became cult classics and are now praised for their contributions to the science fiction and horror genres. So sometimes it's okay to not do well at the beginning because out of the three, I'd rather watch Blade Runner and The Thing than E.T., even though I do own all three of them. But whatever. Okay.
They're all three great films.
They are.
I love them all.
Yeah, I love all three. But I think this is just stupid execs at Universal going, yeah, E.T. won't be a problem because it's for kids.
Yeah.
Fools.
Blunderers.
Yes. That's about as bad a decision as the guy that said, no, you're not going to use M&Ms in our movie. Go someplace else, That guy was fired. That's
idiot. Yeah, but that's the music, though. I want to talk briefly about that.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm telling you, if you did not know it, you would have thought Carpenter composed this music.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is dead on his style, his tone, everything. And when I was watching it again, and I've seen this movie many, many times, and I knew he didn't compose it, but I got lost in it again when it first started. I was like, man, Carpenter did such a good job. Oh, wait a minute. This isn't Carpenter.
Right.
Yeah. I'm ashamed to admit it because I'm such a huge Carpenter fan, but for the longest time, I assumed he did do the score because, he does his own music.
Right.
And the funny thing here is that Morricone purposely used a lot of synthesizers because he thought, well, that's what John's probably going to want.
Right.
So I don't know. Perfect match, though.
It was.
I agree.
Yep.
Real quick, the poster art was done by Drew Struzan, who a lot of us are very fond of. He did it without seeing any publicity photos and pretty much in one night too. So that's a pretty good work for. I'm gonna draw this right now and just be done. There you go. There you go, Carpenter. I'm done. Love it. All right, I have a few more. Does anybody else have any more info they want to drop on this particular film?
I do. I want to talk about what I talked about before. I mean, Rob Bottin did the special effects for this movie, and he spent $1.5 million on the makeup effects. So clearly, what they did with the original, he had to do again with this one and it looks really good on screen.
Oh yeah, the visuals, they're just so good. Just everything from just the creepy tentacles and the legs and the head coming off the table. Just, oh my God. So much good stuff.
You're giving that to a 22-year-old kid to do your effects. He was 22 when he did this stuff. That blows my mind.
Well, let's be honest. If you think about it, even go back to Savini. I mean, a lot of these guys, when they first started out, they were young. I mean, these guys, it's almost like they have a fresh look at things. They're willing to try new things. They're not set in their ways. So they're looking to solve problems differently. So to me, it makes sense that you'd want somebody young. I mean, look at all the guys that were working on ILM back in the 70s when the Star Wars started out. These were all young guys. So it's cool and I love it. And it's always nice when these younger guys, come out and say, you know what, I have a new idea. Let's try this. And it works. And it definitely worked in this film for sure. All right. One more thing I want to mention. Many A-listers auditioned for the part of MacReady. Nick Nolte, top choice immediately, rejected the offer, and the role was turned down by Jeff Bridges, Tom Berenger, Christopher Walken, Scott Glenn, Roy Schneider, Chris Christopherson, Sam Shepard, Jack Thompson, Tom Atkins, and Don Johnson, which I thought was really weird. Bill Lancaster actually wrote the script with Harrison Ford or Clint Eastwood in mind for the lead role. Both received offers, and some of them did show interest, including Christopherson, Shepard, and even Ford. But everyone turned it down for a variety of reasons, including scheduling, filming in the extreme cold, which they did not like the idea, and also the fact that it was considered a B movie at the time. So they turned it down for a lot of different reasons. And I guess it worked out because I think Kurt Russell's awesome in this movie, to be really honest.
Oh, yes, he is. Yeah, he is.
All right. Any other facts we want to drop before we move on?
If we could just stay at the alternate universe video store for a bit longer, you talked about who was up for the role of MacReady.
Right.
I got to point out one of Dave's good buddies, Ernie Hudson, was the front runner to play Childs. You got Brian Dennehy was the first choice to play Copper, and while Donald Pleasance was Carpenter's choice for Blair, Universal's first choice to direct this film was Tobe Hooper because he was already under contract. So imagine what we could have had versus what we did get.
Wow.
Interesting. I would
That
like
would
to
have
see
been-
that version. I would.
Yeah,
I would.
I don't. I
Yeah.
don't hate that. That's a lot of good parts in there too. I don't hate that. So
Yeah. Another thing I found interesting, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but the Norwegian at the beginning who was screaming and yelling, do you know what he was actually saying?
No.
He said, get the hell out of there. That's not a dog. It's some sort of thing. It's imitating a dog. It isn't real. Get away, you idiots.
Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't. Where were the subtitles for that? I would have.
Right.
That would
It's
have
great.
great.
It's great that we don't have the subtitles though. Imagine if you're watching this in another country though, and you do speak the language. You're like, oh well, now I know what's happening. It's
Right.
It's one hell of a spoiler, I would think.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of oops. So, all right, let's go ahead and move on.
That was totally wicked!
It's time for That Was Totally Wicked. These are things we love about the film. We're going to start off with the one that came out first, the thing from 1951. So, Jeff, what is something you love about this film?
Element of the novella would invoke distrust. I think the dynamic between the scientists and the military officers delivers plenty of it.
Yeah, they did a pretty good job with that. I like that there was, in the later one, it was just kind of like one group of guys. In this one, it was more, you have the scientists and the military kind of, battling it out against each other. So yeah, I like that idea too. I thought it was pretty cool.
And regardless of which side you find yourself leaning towards, it's noteworthy that this film is released just 6 years after we dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. So the American public was most likely already concerned with how far science and the military-industrial complex would and could go, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Very good. Good point.
That's a valid point.
All right. Dave, something you love about the film?
So we kind of briefly touched on this earlier, but the creature entering the building and they set him on fire, that entire sequence was absolutely stunning on screen. When the lights went out and everything was just glowing from the flames, and of course they kept throwing the kerosene on him, I just thought that was very, very impressive and just beautiful. It really was.
Yeah, I love the way the door just burst open and there he was. So yeah, it was nice. It was a nice reveal and a nice way to, heighten the situation because at that point you just heard about him and whatever. But yeah, I'd actually see him. And then the great part about that scene was Carpenter brought it back in the remake. Slightly different, but yeah, a nice little homage to that one. Very good. All right, so I actually love that they shot on location as much as they could. I mean, obviously they were in Montana for a couple weeks, and then they used physical structures that they built and used an actual plane, not a model. Because it was the 50s, it would have been cheaper just to do a model, but they had an actual plane, see it land and whatever. I liked the sets they built. Everything looked really good, and for 51, even the matte painting, the fact that they did the iconic circle shot in a ice storage facility or on set or whatever, that looked great, So for 51, the visuals are really super strong, and that was impressive, and I really, really appreciated that. And of course the kerosene was fun too. But anyway, we've already talked about that. But yes, I love that. All right.
The fact that they're shooting in meat lockers just to capture their breath.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a digital effect you could do back then. So I thought that was kind of ingenious to shoot on location to convey it, I think.
Yeah, it's always something that it seems like they struggle with, and Hollywood is getting that breath to show up. So, All right. Anything else, Jeff? Anything else you love about this film?
You already mentioned it, but I'll just readdress it again. I love the RKO Winchester opening and the fact that it makes me want to watch John Carpenter's Halloween.
Right. I love it. All right, Dave, anything else you love about the original?
I do. I love the playfulness between Captain Henry and Nikki. I love those two characters and how they interacted with one another, even including the playfulness that they had. I love those two characters, and I thought they played off very well with each other.
All right. We're going to disagree later, I guess. Okay. Sorry.
Okay. I think we will.
All right. I'm used to that. It's okay. All right. Anything else we love about this one before we move on? All right. The Thing from 1982. Dave, what's something you love about this film?
Oh man, there's so much to love about this one too.
Yes, there is.
It's crazy, but I love the opening of this movie, and I'm not talking just the title of The Thing. I'm talking about we're right in the middle of some action. Why is this helicopter going after this damn dog? Why is it trying to shoot it? And then the whole chaos of going to the camp of the Americans, and they're all coming out wanting to know what's going on, and then the helicopter crashes, and all of that stuff is going. And then they have to end up killing this guy, and you're like, what the hell is going on? You talking about starting a movie with a bang? There you go.
Yes, I love the use of the dog, and actually the whole beginning of the film, from the helicopter following him. And as soon as the dog gets to the American camp, he runs right up to one of the guys and starts licking him like, hey, I'm a friendly dude. I'm good. Here, help me out. And then that shot right through the eye, man, that was pretty sick too. So yeah, it's a great way to open the film. It definitely grabs your attention very quickly. So yeah, that's a good call out. All right, Jeff, something you love about the film?
The idea of someone isn't what they seem is one of the all-time great plot devices, whether it's literature like John Campbell's novella, Who Goes There, and Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None, or films like this. And we've had plenty of successful films ratchet up the tension by adding those people are trapped together in this kind of a situation. And whether it's a comedy like Clue or, throws a twist ending at you like Identity, over the years, no film has done it better than The Thing.
I agree with that. I agree. For me, there's two things that really stand out for me. The practical effects in this, for the different versions of The Thing, from the version we get in the kennel when it's taken over the dog, to the autopsy that they do on the one from the kennel, all the way to the final evolution, the one that's in the generator room, which is just massive, that was operated by 50 people apparently. They were running that giant puppet thing. It's so amazing, and they look great. Like I mentioned earlier, the head coming off the table and sprouting legs. So much of it is so good, especially for that time frame, and that it's all practical. It's just slime. It looks great on film, and so much so it was grossing people out from the get-go, and I love that. So yay for that. And honestly, Kurt Russell is the other reason I love this film. He's a Snake Plissken with morals and no criminal record. This is actually the version of Kurt Russell I wish we would have gotten in Tombstone. And I'm going to leave that right there.
Interesting. Okay.
I do not like his performance in Tombstone.
Okay.
I will say that
you're on the record. We know that.
I know.
Yes, we know.
No,
we know.
But I'm just saying this version of him would have worked better in that movie. I love this version of him. He takes charge, but he's cool. He has his own issues, but the entire time he's the one you're rooting for. He's the one you're like, I hope he's not a thing. I hope he's not an alien. He's the one we really like the entire time. And this is like one of the first movies I think of when I think of Kurt Russell. So
I gotta say, I had a Tombstone note, and I had omitted it out of respect to you. But now I feel like I gotta throw it back in. He
go right ahead.
So I might have to later. Yeah,
that's okay. I'm used to people hating on what I say. It's fine. I'm good with that.
About Carpenter and Russell, when you get them together, is you get some lines that really will make you bust out laughing, even if they weren't not intended to be funny. But one of the ones that I always enjoy is when he's fighting the final creature and he throws the dynamite. Yeah, fuck you too.
Yes. Yeah, and on the commentary, they weren't quite sure what he was supposed to say, so they just kind of came up with that. And I'm like, yeah, that works. That line.
Perfect.
And it's Palmer when the head sprouts legs start walking away, and he turns around and goes, "You got to be fucking kidding me!" Those are the two best lines in the entire movie, right there, man. Oh, they're fantastic.
And how everybody slowly turned to look to see what it was. That was great.
Oh man, it's so good.
On that subject, it is amazing how quotable a movie like this becomes over the years. Like I can tell you, anytime I'm outside, I want to come back inside. I'm all right now. Like when you're trying to argue with someone, or, if I'm like wondering, is someone in the room? I'm going to shout, "Hey, Swede!" Norwegians, Mac. It's like there's so many good ones in here.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, a lot of people complain that there wasn't enough humor, but there, for the situation, there's a decent amount. I mean, just from little things like, just those two lines. He's in there asking, like when they open up the little door to look in there on him, he has a noose hanging right now. I'm like,
he's got a noose hanging there.
I'm sorry, that made me laugh. Like, oh my god, he's already that far gone. I love it.
You
it's
shouldn't
just,
laugh at that,
but it's funny.
Hilarious.
It's great.
It's the situation. It's funny.
Yeah. He's just sitting there eating his Campbell's chunky soup. I hear funny things out here. I want, it's like, let me back in. I'm all right now. It's like,
yeah, I'm okay. I'm not going to hurt anybody. I promise.
Brimley's so good in this.
He is.
Yes, and it's that kind of film. You watch him in that, and then you go, "That's the guy that did the diabetes commercial, and that's the guy that was in Cocoon." And he sold oatmeal. It's like, this is not the same dude. It's the shaving of the mustache that made the whole thing different. That's what it was.
Yeah,
that's what it was. All right, you guys have anything else you love about this film? Because I could go on, but I'm gonna let you guys do it.
I think we all could, but we're good.
Yeah, well, let's talk about incredible movies over the years. I'm talking like Back to the Future, Apollo 13, Jurassic Park, Roadhouse. They have something in common with this movie, and I'm talking about Dean Cundey. The cinematography of this film, it's absolutely his best work, I feel.
Yeah.
I love how this movie looks.
I was really trying to figure out how Roadhouse fit in with those other ones.
I was like, what?
What the hell? Jeff?
Roadhouse is beautifully shot. I will fight you
Jeff,
on this.
Do you smell toast? Are you okay? Did your left arm hurt?
The way he captures the light in the double deuce, that's a whole nother podcast, okay?
And we even talked about earlier about how seamless it is.
Yes.
Like, all the different places they filmed, the different locations, but you cannot tell.
Yeah. You cannot tell that the difference from when they're in Vancouver to the difference when they're in Universal Studios in California, where it was 100 degrees outside. I mean, it all looks so good. So yeah, I agree. It's it's lit very well. So 100% I agree with that.
Yeah, Dave, just imagine, you've been on several sets. Imagine just the whiteout effect of this movie and how difficult that would be. Like, lighting it had to be just next to impossible, but it's a beautiful film.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
And the good use of the blue lights is a wonderful effect. They did say on the commentary that those were actually airport lights used for guiding on the actual tarmac and whatever. So great effect, especially when the power goes out and then they come back on. That's the only thing you have is those blue lights. Very, very cool. All right, Dave, anything else you want to drop before we move on?
No, sir.
Jeff, you good?
Well, I'll just end on, when a character calls for a specific hairstyle or facial hair, nobody commits like Kurt Russell does. Look at Dayton. Look at that amazing mustache he has in Tombstone, which is a hell of a great Western. But with the thing, it took him a full year to grow his hair and beard out for principal photography. And I got to say, I love McCready's look.
Yes, I do too. I'm working on it right now, actually. No,
I do have one other note.
That hat. I want that hat.
Yes, I want that hat. I have one other note though. So apparently there's a lot of talk. Were they infected? Is one of them infected? Is none of them infected? Did they get rescued at the end? What happens? So apparently John Carpenter already had an answer. He said clearly, he says, they're staring at each other and it's harshly backlit. He says, it's completely obvious. Kurt Russell is breathing. Keith David is not.
See? Okay, that's funny because on the commentary, which was recorded for the Laserdisc, so it's a bit old. And one thing they mentioned a lot on the commentary was that they had that discussion throughout the entire film. Would you know if you were infected? Would you know if you're one of the things? And so even at the end of the commentary, they were saying, is Childs, is McCready? I mean, you want to think they're not and everything else. So yeah, I noticed that you can't really see the breath for Childs, and to me, I'm like, but even if he was a thing, there'd still be heat coming out of his. I don't know. I just thought it was like a bad lighting thing. I didn't read too much into it, but
there's another argument too. There's another argument too. There's other people on another camp who say that they were throwing napalm, not napalm, but you make a bomb out of alcohol. What's it called?
Oh, Molotov cocktails. Yes.
So they were using. So they said that Kurt Russell McCready had put some stuff into that bottle, so he handed it to Childs, who drank it like it was no big deal. And that's kind of why he gives McReady kind of gives that that at the end, like, you just drank that, it was no big deal. So, there's that camp too who's arguing. Yeah.
Interesting.
Well,
I didn't even think about that. That's cool.
Yeah, and it goes round and round here because even Dean Cundy talked about the lighting on the picture and said, when you're the Thing, there's your eyes are like dead, and if there's no glint on Child's eyes, he's clearly the Thing. My personal thought is that the nerddom finally got sick of arguing over whether or not hand shot first, and we just went over to this, like, who's the Thing? I personally, for me, I like the idea that we've got two heroes at the end making the ultimate sacrifice to make sure it doesn't get out. Yeah. That's where I'm at with it. So
yeah, I kind of like that.
I like the idea that they're both human.
Yeah,
I do. I just love how movies can create this kind of thing, though. That just shows you the cult following this kind of film. This film has.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those endings where you could discuss that. It doesn't give you an official ending, and it doesn't tell you that they were rescued. It doesn't tell you that it just kind of cuts the black and the credits roll with them with the camp burning. So
yep.
And then we're left to discuss it 30 plus years later. And that's quite all right.
It is.
All right, let's go ahead and move on.
No, sir, I didn't like it.
It's time for No, Sir, I Didn't Like It. These are things that don't work or we don't like within the film. Let's start with 1951 version. Jeff, anything that doesn't work for you?
I'm not nitpicking here, but at no point, for me anyways, does this movie believably convey the brutal cold of the Arctic setting. They talk about it being 25 below zero, and meanwhile, Scotty arrives wearing a wool overcoat and a scarf. So if you want to feel the cold, you watch Carpenter's Remake.
True. Yeah. I'll give you that. All right, Dave.
For me, it's kind of a double-edged sword. Again, I don't want to nitpick this film, as Jeff just said. I would have liked to see what they have done with the shape-shifting thing. But on the other side of that sword, we talked about it earlier. I like the suspense that it built, and we got what we got. So it's kind of, I don't know which way to go there, but I'm okay with what they went with, but what could it have been?
Okay. All right. So I'm going to argue with Dave and say that the relationship between Pat and Nikki is completely pointless. It really does not drive our story. It doesn't give us any new information. It's just it's banter is what it is. And fine, but it's not like, they literally put Nikki in harm's way. Here, have this mattress in front of you while the place catches on fire. It's not like she gets snagged or kidnapped or whatever. They're just there. So to me, that just seems like, we could have done without it. But really, the one thing that drove me nuts, and it wasn't the entire way through the film, but there's a lot of sections where the dialogue is so close together, it's almost cross-talking, but not really. It's like some of the actors weren't waiting, like they were just waiting to say their line. They're done. The time I me to say my line, and it was just like boom, 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 boom. Like going, take a breath, people. There's people talk and they interact and they think about what they're saying. It's like they knew what they were going to say when the other person was saying their lines, and they just came out. And I'm like, it doesn't happen in every scene, but it happened enough to where I kept noticing it over and over again. It would take me out of the experience for just a minute. And I'm just like, relax, people, relax. It's not like they were like when they're arguing, it made sense, but there's a lot of times I'm just like, especially like opening scene in the officers' quarters or in the officers, they're playing cards. Yeah, they're just sitting there. It's like, boom, 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 just delivering lines. I'm like, dudes, relax. Are you guys on speed? What's going on? I know it's cold, but damn, but that was
excited to deliver those lines, Dayton.
I guess so. And one thing that was really kind of silly to me was when they were in the plane, and like I said, the plane looked good. When the captain's flying it and they're all talking, he has two fingers on the stick, and I'm like, dude, it's friggin' Antarctica. It's windy up there. And so they're talking about this storm coming in and all this other stuff. And he's just like, holding on. Oh, I'm good. This is cool. I'm just out for a cruise. I'm like, no. He's like handing it off the coffee cup. I'm just like, okay, come on. At least hold on. Make us believe it. Anyway. All right.
I feel like, Dayton, I feel like the fact that we're talking about The Thing being a perfect imitation, no one ever agrees with you. But here I find myself agreeing with you about Margaret Sheridan's character, Nikki. I agree with you. She is pointless. The fact that she gets top billing because Howard Hawks had a thing for her,
Right.
no pun intended. Remember, he signs this girl to a 5-picture contract and he jams her into this movie. And to me, she's nothing more than eye candy.
Yeah. Pretty much.
It was the 50s, so
yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's a product of its time, I guess. But
yep,
I'm with you on that one, Dayton.
All right.
Well, I will stand on the hill by myself. I'm good with that.
Now you know how I feel most of the time. So. All right.
He's gonna make Dave's blood jump.
All right. Anything else that doesn't work for you guys?
Yeah, I got to tell you, as opposed to Carpenter's version, this movie has an abundance of people on site, most of which don't seem too scared or concerned that a dangerous alien life form is loose and stalking them. Everyone's just walking around the barracks, like having like their normal conversations, and they're still joking. And like, you mentioned, like Dave mentioned, like, oh yeah, I married that girl. It's like, hey, there's an alien outside that's eating people. Do we want to focus on that?
Right. Yeah. Well,
maybe not. Maybe. I don't know.
It's like the only time they really talk about that is when they first bring the block of ice back and they have a guard on it. And then one guy comes over and talks to the captain and they say, okay, well, we'll shorten the watches down to 2 hours, which is fine. But you're right. It seems like after that, everybody's just kind of business as usual and nobody really cares. And the fact that there's so many people also seems kind of overkill. I'm like, how many people do you need up there? And I don't know. I figure with that many people, there was going to be more people killed. Honestly, I was a little disappointed there weren't more casualties, and I know that says something about me, but I'm just saying
they could have cut that cast in half easily.
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
You had 30 some people, and how many actual casualties do we have? What, 2, maybe 3?
2 and a dog.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
but it. Yeah,
and I'm like, that should have been like, yeah, I'm sorry. That seemed like a wasted opportunity. So yeah, I agree with
you shouldn't be. Yeah, you shouldn't be talking about how you should be cracking jokes about how your CO should marry some broad. You should be talking about how something is weird and pissed off, and it's right inside with you. So
yeah,
I don't get it.
Yeah, especially after they set it on fire. It seemed like that's the only time it really got important. It was like, oh, it ran away, and I'm like, okay, well, and it might come back. And like I said, even when they're setting up the trap and everything else, that was the only time that you really felt like anybody was concerned. And at that point, it was more because the scientists were messing around with stuff instead of actually helping trying to kill the damn thing. So,
yep.
But anyway, all right. Let's move on to Carpenter's The Thing. Anything that doesn't work for you, Jeff?
It's not easy to take issue with it, but for the sake of the pod, I do have one thing for you, Dayton.
Okay.
So hidden among this all-male cast, we have Adrienne Barbeau as the voice of the computer chess game that McCready plays. The woman is far too lovely not to be on screen, so my only critique is that we should have had McCready watching Adrienne Barbeau on VHS tapes, like her 100. She did 127 episodes of Maude, or maybe get a little meta and have the guys watching The Fog in the Rec Room, because that was just a couple years earlier.
That's true.
That could have been kind of cool,
That would have been cool. All right, Dave, you have anything that doesn't work for you?
So again, with Jeff, I think this film is pretty perfect, and he's dead on. He's exactly what I wrote down. I would have liked to have some kind of female presence in this film, and it should have been her.
All right.
Story.
So she is wasted, I'll admit. It's like, why even have the voice? It doesn't really matter, It could have been any kind of synthesized voice. It really didn't have to be a waste of And had it been like with Mother, on Alien, where there was more, I don't know, there's something else. It was kind of wasted. So I don't think there necessarily needed to be any women, because I liked I don't want to say like testosterone filled film, but it felt like more like a brotherhood that were there initially as a brotherhood, and then it fell apart. It was, so I don't necessarily care about that. But so I have a couple of things that bother me. As cool as a reveal it is, how in the hell did Blair dig that tunnel and build that spaceship in less than 12 hours? I mean, it was maybe 24 at the most, but they put him up there, and I know he's an alien and everything, spoiler, but that's a lot to do in a very short amount, and then move all those tools down there, and I'm like, he was up there like barely a day. Which is like, come on now. That's a bit of a reach for me. I mean,
I'm gonna answer you by quoting McCready.
Oh, God.
And I'm gonna say, I don't know, because it's from outer space. Ask the doc.
It might be some kind of voodoo shit.
yeah, it could be some voodoo bullshit. We don't know.
Oh, all right. I'll shut up about that then. So, my other complaint is that we don't get enough time. My other complaint is we just don't get enough time with these characters, right? I wish we had a little bit more time to get to know them before the wheels all fall off, because like I said, with all McCready's failures as far as his drinking and whatever, he's still our hero for the most part. And we get to know the other guys a little bit, but not enough to really care when they die or when they get torched or whatever. And so that was a little bit disappointing that we didn't get enough much time. I mean, Carpenter does do a good job showing the monotony of their situation with Mac playing chess and then dumping the Jim Beam in there because he's pissed at her, calling her a cheater. And then you have Palmer switching out the let's make a deal tape for porn because he's seen that one already. So that's fine. But we could have had more time learning about these guys and getting to know them before they all ended up dead. So just saying.
Dayton, I think that's a good point, because this clocks in like an hour and 45 minutes, and I could definitely have went for like two hours, 2:10, because we've got this mystery also. Like Windows is trying to reach somebody. Blair comes in there. Get somebody, anybody. And they're talking about like maybe we're with Sweden. Like, I would love to know what is going on in the world where they are kind of separated and they can't get a hold of anybody.
Right.
So if we had a little bit of tension, a little bit of build up to just find out what the hell's going on outside of the Outpost 31, that would have been kind of cool.
Yeah. See, I mean, more time would have been fine. Yeah, because it's a quick movie. It's not like you ever feel that it's we can cut that or whatever. It moves very quickly. So yeah, another 15 minutes or so, a couple scenes here and there would have definitely been interesting. I mean, we don't necessarily need an explanation as to why they can't get a hold of it. I mean, it could be, Storms can do it or whatever, but yeah, I mean, there's a few more things they could have given us that would have made it a little more interesting to watch these people perish one by one. So, but
that's a valid point.
All right. A valid point. Man, I've got two this episode. I'm rolling in wins this time. I love it. All right.
You're on a roll.
I know. It doesn't happen very often. All right. We're going to take a quick promo break, and when we get back, we're going to hit some favorites and give this film a rating.
Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men?
Turn your dial to find the frequency of the past.
Captain Advice.
Where the classic stories of mysteries, sci-fi, thrillers, and suspense are found waiting to be heard once again.
Another case for Nick Carter, Master Detective.
You'll find a variety of those stories here, in their original form, where each episode takes you to another place or time.
The Man of Bronze, Doc Savage.
But only when you find the mystery frequency. Available everywhere.
The shadow knows.
Why are you smiling like that?
I just like to smile. Smiling's my favorite.
Make work your favorite. That's your favorite, okay?
Okay.
Work is your new favorite.
Fine.
All right, it's time for Smiling's My Favorite. There's some favorite things from the films, and I have a couple surprise questions for our gentlemen here. So first of all, from each film, you get to pick a favorite character. So Jeff, who's your favorite character from each film?
For 51, I'm going to go with Scotty.
Yeah, that's mine too. Woo!
I'm surprising. It's surprising to me because I actually found myself annoyed by him initially and hoping that the thing would get him. But over the course of the film, he kind of transitions from this inept outsider to a man of action. And I think he had the best arc. I like Scotty.
I liked him too because he didn't belong in either group. He wasn't the soldier. He wasn't a scientist. He kind of was almost like our avatar for like what was going on, because we can kind of relate to him a little bit more than the other side. So yeah,
Exactly.
All right. And look at that. We all agree on the on the first pick. Wow.
And even his ending speech,
yes,
that became like the epitome of the 50s sci-fi of his lines at the end of this movie. And it was perfect. So yeah, I couldn't agree more with you on Jeff on that. Scotty surprised me. Like I had written down Hendry at first, but then the more I watched him, like, wait a minute, man, Scotty's really pulling this out now. And he does by the time he gets to the end. I'm like, okay, you really love that character by the end. And that's a perfect story arc.
Right.
Take you from one end to another end, completely turn you upside down. Yep. He deserves the trophy for that.
Yep. And keep watching
that line. Watch the skies.
Yeah, keep watching the skies. Yep.
Yep.
Love it. All right, Jeff, your favorite from Carpenters?
It's got to be R.J. McCready. With an ensemble cast this dialed in and firing on all cylinders, it's tough for anyone to stand out because no one character has the best lines or the best moment. Because you can watch this and identify with practically every character, but you want to be McCready.
Yeah, that's my answer too. It's low hanging fruit, but I don't care.
It is. I feel like it's cheating because you're picking the main character, but you can't help it.
Yeah.
Because Kurt Russell is so damn good, and when he has this kind of role, this dark hero, it's perfect for him. And this is the birth of that, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, Pliskin was first, right?
Well, Pliskin was 81.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Pliskin was first. Right. So this is a continuance of that, and you're just seeing him grow into that type of character. So you have to pick him because he's Kurt Russell.
He's the right answer, right?
He is.
All right. So let's go ahead and move on to favorite scene. What's your favorite scene from 51 and from 82 there, Jeff?
We've talked about it a couple times already for 51, but it's the fire attack on the thing. It's terrifying to watch. Like it.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, how are they doing this in 1951? I mean, because the scene is chaotic.
Yes,
and
it
it's
is
scary. So I actually watched it a couple times because I just was enthralled by it. It's such it's probably the best shot of the film in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Just the simple fact that they're tossing kerosene across the set, and I'm just like, okay, all right, this wins. This wins for that craziness alone, man. Yeah, that was my choice too. How about you, Dave?
Same thing. You can't argue. I mean, that scene is phenomenal. As soon as it happens, you're just like, oh my God, how is this a 1951 film? This looks incredible.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to go with that scene.
So I'm going to throw out the runner-up, and when they're standing in the circle in the snow around the flying saucer.
Good one.
That would be my runner-up because it's very iconic, and they bring that back also in they bring back both the flame scene and that scene in the remake. So
I agree. Yeah.
Good call.
All right. So Jeff, favorite scene from Carpenters?
My favorite scene is the one that probably creates the most anxiety when you watch it, and I'm talking about the blood test.
Right.
You're just gripping the arms of the chair. It's scary, and it's also hilarious because when everything calms down and you've got Gary's amazing line. I know you gentlemen have been through a lot, but if you could find the time, I don't want to spend the rest of this winter on this fucking couch. Like, just loses it. I love it, but the idea that everyone's against being tied down, and then as soon as like their blood passes, then like there's a quick cut, and then you see them. They got a flamethrower, or they're like with McCready. So I love this scene. I think it's the best moment of the movie. Honestly.
And it was the reason that Carpenter wanted to make the film was because of that scene. So,
yep.
And good call. All right, Dave, how about you?
So that is a phenomenal scene, and that was going to be my pick. But I'm going to go with another one. But before I move on to that, I want to mention a little tidbit of information about that scene. So when the Palmer thing attacks Windows and throws him into the shelves?
Yes.
Windows gets thrown over there?
Yes.
Yeah.
So a board game right next to him says "Stay Alive."
What?
Yes. So watch it again.
Yes.
And it is.
No.
Stay Alive is right there. So that Stay Alive kind of reminds me of the Suncoast story, Jeff, with you. You had worked like a third shift, and you had come into work for me at Suncoast, and you bumped into a shelf, and it was a Wiggles episode that fell on the floor, and it said, "Wake up, Jeff."
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Wake up, Jeff. Yeah.
Right.
Fantastic.
So I was going to pick that. The blood test sequence is phenomenal. I will not argue with you on that, Jeff, but I don't want to be a copycat. I'm going to say I know I am human speech by McGrady.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love that scene because they're all out in the snow and they're turned on him, and that's when he gives that I know I am human, and then just goes on. I love that speech that he gives to the guys that are in front of him, and it's already starting to build that tension and that suspense for you as an audience. And you're with him, you're on the edge of your seat, but then you're like, do we believe him? I don't know, but yeah, I love that speech.
Very good.
Great
Very
speech.
Good. All right, so my favorite scene is actually the resuscitation scene when Cooper loses his arms. I just love that. We've given, because it just goes right through the chest and just chomps his arms off. Oh my God. Love that. The reactions from everybody. The first time I watched that, I remember just about almost shitting my pants because I'm just like, oh my God, did I just see his chest turn into teeth? Oh, it was so good. I love that scene. And the whole extension of it, everything from that part to when the head stretches off and we mentioned before, sprouts legs and crawls out the door, and we get that great line. I absolutely love that scene so much, and it's just awesome. And that's actually, out of all the fantastic scenes in the movie, that is the one that's burned into my brain more than any of them. So I love that one very much.
Yep, absolutely. Good pick.
All right. So this one's getting a little morbid. Do you have a favorite death scene from Carpenter's The Thing? Because I do.
Absolutely. And, like you said, it burned in your brain. Copper losing his arms when the open chest cavity of the thing bites them clean off is shock horror at its best.
Very good. All right, Dave.
I can't argue with that. How can you?
Okay.
When you think of The Thing, you think of that death. You do.
All right. Well, I actually went with Windows because he was trying to help, and then he just gets grabbed and absorbed, and it's like his head's grabbed by the monster, and then he gets thrown, as you already mentioned, against the games, the shelf of games. So, and then he gets torched for his help. So it's just like, man, what a bummer. And then my runner-up is Clark because he deserved it anyway.
He deserved.
He was gonna knife McCready. Come on.
Human. He was human, Dave. That makes you a murderer.
That's right. Had I been in McCready's situation, I'd have shot him in the head too. Just saying.
I would have also.
I would have too.
Yeah, I wouldn't have hesitated, but still.
All right. Here are the surprise questions for the gentleman that I would, because I'm just being a dick. All right. So, your favorite John Carpenter film? And I think Dave mentioned it earlier what his was, but Jeff, your favorite John Carpenter film?
Probably The Thing. I have to say it's hard. It's hard to beat this one. This is his masterpiece. Really, it really is.
All right. Dave, that's your answer too, isn't it?
As much as I love Halloween, I'm obsessed with Halloween. I love Michael Myers. I love what John Carpenter did to the slasher genre. But I agree, The Thing is his masterpiece.
All right. Well, I do love this film, but my favorite is actually They Live. I love everything he did in that movie. I love the social commentary in there, and one of the best on-screen fist fights ever is in that movie. So
the best.
Yes, it's so good. And one of the best lines ever, I've come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum. Just so fantastic.
Dayton, it's not a wrong answer. It really isn't.
That's true.
I mean, there's so many great Carpenter movies. It's hard to pick just one, but and maybe just because we've been talking about The Thing tonight, that's my pick. But
All right.
I think it's the right one.
All right. So, other surprise question: your favorite Kurt Russell role?
Jack Burton.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah. Gotta be.
That's mine too.
He's talking to whoever's listening.
That's not a wrong answer. That's perfect.
Well, there are some wrong answers, but anyway.
Don't you go to Tombstone. Don't you do it. Don't you do it.
I didn't say.
Dayton, you called down the thunder.
We will bring hell with us, buddy.
Yeah. I actually was going to say his role in Hateful Eight because I did not like that movie at all. So.
Okay, I wasn't a big fan of that one either.
It's not great.
Yeah, that was painful to watch. Honestly, it was just Anyway, moving on. All right. So let's hit final words and rating for each of our films. Rating of 1 to 5 film reels. So, Dave, what do you want to say about each of these films and what's the rating?
So for the 1951, I'm going to give it a 4.5. A film that's seriously ahead of its time with scares, gore, off-screen violence, and atmospheric scares in the vein of Halloween. For the 82, I'm giving it a 5, as it builds on what 51 version had, the 51 version had, gives it more on-screen gore and violence because of the times, and gives us better characters. The addition of who is the creature adds a very frightening dimension to this film.
Fantastic. All right, Jeff, how about you?
Dayton, The Thing from Another World is nearly 75 years old. Despite that, it's packed with tension, action, and several effects that hold up to today's standards. Rewatching it for this podcast reminds me why classic films have a welcome place in my collection. I'm going to give it 3 film reels. And then John Carpenter's The Thing, we've said it, I'll say it again. It's a masterpiece. From the stellar performances of the perfectly cast actors, the unreal creature designs of Rob Bottin, Morricone's haunting score, 5 film reels for sure.
All right. So for the 1951 version, this is definitely a must-see for any science fiction fans. Helps you appreciate the 82 version a lot more because you can call out all the, hey, he pulled that from that. He pulled that from that. Maybe not a good choice for Christian Nimby as a debut. I kind of feel like it might have been a bit too big for him to cut his teeth on. Some of the choices he made, Jeff pointed out also that nobody seems to be all that worried about what's going on, whatever. Like I said, the dialogue problems I had earlier. But anyway, it does do a lot of things right, but in my eyes, not perfect. So I give it 3.5 out of 5. And Carpenter's version, the paranoia, claustrophobia, and visual effects are all worth your time. A solid performance from a cast that had to share a lot of screen time with one another. This one, I give it a 4 out of 5 for sure. So 82 is definitely a level up over the original, which doesn't always happen with remakes. So
true.
This doesn't. So, all right. Fantastic discussion, gentlemen. I am so glad you're able to spend some time with me and discuss, the frozen wastes and alien creatures, terrifying us stupid humans. So, but before we get out of here, Jeff, why don't you tell us what's coming up on A Film By?
Dayton, thank you. In February, we'll be discussing filmmakers like Spike Lee and Robert Townsend, as well as celebrating the music of Jerry Goldsmith. And because we're all heart over on A Film By, we'll be discussing My Bloody Valentine, both the original and remake for our Valentine's Day special.
Awesome.
But that's not all. Dave, what do we got?
Right. That's not all. We got to talk about Phasers Set to Stun. Wayne, Scott, and I are discussing Section 31, which is being released just today. And then following up in February, we're doing 2 episodes of the OG films, The Wrath of Khan and The Search for Spock. Nice.
I'll look forward to the Wrath of Khan episode. Search for Spock, not so much. But Wrath of Khan, I love. So it's okay. Anyway, that's not the same Savick. What the hell happened? Anyway, moving on. But thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Dayton. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Dayton.
And of course, we want to thank our listeners for spending some time with us. There are lots of different podcast options out there, and it means quite a bit that you do spend some time with us every week. So interact with us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and on Blue Sky now. Let us know what you think about these 2 films. Have you seen the original? Are you going to go see it now because of what we said? Please let us know, and we will love to share your thoughts on further episodes. And do us a favor and share the podcast on social media. Share them with your friends, family, and coworkers, because more people is more better. Rate and review the podcast. 5-star reviews help us out and get us seen by more people. And if we actually get a chance to see the review, we will share it on an upcoming episode. Join us on Patreon for exclusive content. Recent episodes include the review of the film yesterday. And to coincide with this particular month, we are discussing Spirited Away from the Studio Ghibli film Spirited Away. That was actually a suggestion by Liam. I had never seen it before. And let me tell you, man, that blew my socks off. On our social media, actually on our Patreon as well, you can help us decide what 1970s Disney animated film we are going to discuss. We are doing Disney through the decades. We are going to discuss one feature film from the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and we need a little help with our 70s pick. So there is a link on social media, and as well as just polls on social media to tell us who's going to win Is it going to be the Rescuers? Is it going to be the Aristocats? Is it going to be Robin Hood? Is it going to be Winnie the Pooh? Right now, the Rescuers have a little bit of a lead, so if you want something else, you better get over there and vote. Looking forward to that. It will also include, I'll go all the way up to the 2010s, so a lot to discuss over there. Do yourself a favor, watch more movies, and remember, physical media is better than streaming. The Docking Bay 77 podcast is produced and edited by Dayton Johnson, recorded with Rode Pod mics, the Zoom PodTrack P4, and edited on Audacity. Opening music provided by Eric Jason Brock. You can find him on YouTube and Bandcamp. Thank you for listening.